Hi, hope you are all good. I just wanted to jump on today. I've pinned a ask a question box. I don't know if that's working, but if it is, feel free to ask any questions. Because I woke up this morning to quite an upsetting comment on my video on multi-cat households. It's gone now. I reported it straight away. I won't go into detail of what it was, but it wasn't okay. But underneath the, like it was upsetting, but underneath what's coming through to me is that it's really hard to live with cats that don't get along. And I'm always super positive about this stuff. I'm always like, okay, there's things we can try, and you know, have you tried this, like X, Y, and Z, and trying to figure out why they're not getting on and to find ways that can help them get along better. But I also didn't want to give across the idea that it's always a solvable problem, and you know that I can help any two cats get along or any multi-cat household feel good or harmonious, because I know that there are cats that just can't live together, and that varies depending on where you live or what sort of environment you have or what like mindset you're in and what capabilities or capacity you have to help them get along. And I just wanted to jump on to talk this through and that say there's no judgment from me if it's not doable. And it doesn't mean that if you're finding it hard or you feel like, you know, you can't continue with this, it doesn't mean you're failing. It doesn't mean that you're, you know, that you should feel bad about yourself. Like I knew you would feel bad anyway, that it would be better if we could get cats to get along and everyone would be happy. But I didn't want anyone to feel like they need to internalize that and feel like, you know, if I was better or somebody else might be able to make this work, but I can't, because that isn't the case. And so I've got notes. I just wanted to talk through a few things that that factor into that, and I guess sort of maybe help you or make you feel better if you do feel like it's not doable anymore and you feel like there isn't really any other option than to either keep them separate or rehome. And I do have a video on whether you should rehome. That is a standalone video out there somewhere, and it does, like on my channel, and it does talk through the different factors to consider as to whether rehoming is best. But what I would say straight from the off is that I would recommend not having the mindset of we will never rehome, because I do admire people that have that view, and I know where that's coming from, because of course we would probably all feel that way if you consider your cats to be part of your family, which most of us do. You would never be like, well, I'll just get rid of one of them if it's not working. So I get that, but also I think sometimes it means that your cats can live in very stressful situations permanently. And as upsetting as it can be, sometimes rehoming is good, is best for everybody's outcome or everybody's welfare, especially if you know somewhere where they can go. So they don't have to go into like a rescue and you don't really know where they go. If you can find someone where, you know, a friend or family member that could take them for you, then you know where they're going and you can see how their behaviour will change. So just a few things to keep in mind for this is, like I say, it's okay if you're in this position, because we have to look after our own mental well-being, the mental well-being of our cats, and we have to physically manage this situation, which isn't easy. It's overwhelming, it's hard, and it's exhausting. And when you feel like there's no, or potentially no positive outcome, I can see why you'd feel completely hopeless and just, yeah, at the end of your tether. So make sure you're looking after yourselves, and like I say, don't feel bad if it isn't something you can continue doing, because it probably means that it's not like your cats aren't happy in that situation anyway, so you might find it's better all round to find them somewhere new. So some things to consider is that you need to have the right setup to help cats get along, and sometimes this just isn't doable. Because, so I spoke all about what would actually help in a previous live, so I'm not going to go into that now, but generally what we're looking at is if you have two cats that don't get along, we want to make sure the territory is set up in a way to help them share. So we almost want to encourage them to be separate So they can have their own separate territories in your house, not necessarily with a door closed in between them, but just in the way everything's set up. So feeding stations separately, and plenty of water bowls to go around, plenty of litter trays in separate areas, and plenty of those really comfortable places where they want to sleep in separate parts of your home. So if they want to, they can keep out of each other's way. It's not like they have to come down for dinner together. They have to sleep on that one bed because it's the only comfortable place that's warm and comfortable and smells like you. So make sure you've got everything set up that way. However, if you have a smaller home, or if you have more than 2 cats, if you have 6 cats or however it might be, then you're going to find that difficult because there just isn't the available space, and you may not have the right setup. Like some people have an open plan living area downstairs, in which case, how are you supposed to set that up? They're always going to be in the same room. There's always going to be some contact between them. And like things like access outside, that's a really common one where some people find it difficult to stop their cats from meeting because there's one cat flap, or there's one back door, or there's one exit. And even if they keep themselves in your home, when they want to go outside, they're meeting at their cat flap. So sometimes you'll find sometimes I find the cat flap is a place where aggression tends to happen because there's a lot of traffic there with cats coming and going, and one cat just might be hanging around, and the other cat will come in and be like, there's the cat, and there might be a fight. So if you have a setup where you just cannot help them separate and you can't allow them to live separate lives in your home, then there's no judgment from me that that's not an option. I totally get that. That isn't anything that you can do about to help that work. So as much as I'm always harping on about, make sure you have plenty of high places, make sure you have tons and tons of beds and all that stuff, actually, I do understand if that's not doable. The same where I'm always recommending people have like great big cat trees or shelving so the cats can get up, and you're using you're unlocking all of this territory up high. That is really good to help cats get along. But I appreciate that it might not be what you want in your home, or you might have a partner, or you might live with your parents or have children, and it isn't really the way you want to set your home up. And it's great if you can allow that, if you can find a way to make that work. But again, there's no judgment from me if that isn't what you wanted. If you don't want your whole house transformed into a cat paradise, then sometimes that's great for people that want that. Other times it isn't what people want. And again, I do get that. So if it isn't something that you can do and you can accommodate in your home, it is going to be more difficult for your cats to get along. And it is going to be something that maybe isn't sustainable. And when I'm giving out the advice of, you need to create these separate territories, you might find, well, I can't. And I get that. I do see that that's obviously the case for a lot of people. So that might be one scenario where you're like, I see what might help, but it's not practical. And so then maybe finding a new home would be better. Also, we need to think about the temperaments of the cats as well. So here, there are obviously tons of different ways where cats tons of different personalities that make it more challenging for you to help them get along. So what we're dealing with normally is that, like on paper, is like 2 well-rounded cats that are well socialized, that have the capacity to live with other cats and are friendly towards you, and they're good. They fit the bill, they're textbook. But sometimes you don't have that, and you can't do that stuff. So for example, if you have a cat who's really scared of you because they're feral, or they were a previous stray and they weren't well socialized with people, so you haven't yet had the opportunity to build that trust with them and to encourage them to bond with you, then how are you supposed to do the meetings with the cats? Where I'm often recommending, you sit with the cats and encourage them to spend time together, and you make it positive with treats and with toys. How can you possibly make that positive if your cat's scared of you? That's not really practical. You can't. Likewise, if you have one cat that's super boisterous or full of beans and wants to play all the time, then you will have to play with that cat to use up that energy, to take the heat off your other cat, and to meet those needs, because that cat needs way more stimulation than either your everyday cat or the other cat that you have in your household. So again, that may not be practical. You may not be able to play with that cat constantly. You may not be able to manage that cat because is so full of beans that it's always running after the other one, or it's always, getting out of your grip, because we know that they're slippery little fish, and even if you try to keep them with you, they'll wriggle out and they'll dash through the door when you try to separate them, and all those things that make it challenging. Again, this is something that you wouldn't hear on a video about how to get cats to get along, because it's unique to you and it's unique to the cats that you have with you. So these things, again, they're going to complicate things and they're going to make it more difficult. And I have met some cats who just flat out refuse to live with any other cats ever. It's rare, but these cats may have been previous strays, that's like a common one, or a street cat. I've worked with quite a lot of street cats that have come over from abroad, and they're used to a life of like living around other cats, generally okay, but everything's on their own terms. They can go if they want, they can come back when they want to. Sometimes they might fight other cats, and they've had those experiences. They can handle themselves. They're streetwise. And then trying to fit that cat into a multi-cat household can sometimes be difficult, because now, this is a video for another day to be fair, but these cats sometimes struggle because they suddenly don't have the freedom to come and go. They're now having to live in a home with 4 walls where other cats are there too, and they find that much more difficult. So again, it is, if you have one of those cats, you can follow all the steps, you can do all the advice, you can put everything into place, and it may not work. And again, it's upsetting, it really is. And I don't want you to internalize that and think I failed them, or it's my fault if only I'd done something different, because it's not on you. It's not on you, and we can only do what we can do. So that side of things, it's important to find a good match, but of like 2 cats to help live together. But sometimes you don't get a choice, do you? Like, cats just move in, or you fall in love with a particular cat and they're not such a good match for the cats that you already have. And sometimes you don't know what you're going to get, do you? You can find a kitten, or you can find a cat that you think, okay, yeah, this is going to work, and they act completely differently when you get them home. Like, lots of people will get another cat for company for the cat they have at home. Like, they might have one cat and they're like, I'm sure they would love a friend, I'm sure they would want someone to keep them company throughout the day or play together, and then it just goes terribly because both cats are like, we didn't want this, but we've misgauged it. And finally, I just wanted to mention that, as well as the limits of the environment and the specific cats you have in your home, also we have different constraints on us, we have limitations, and these can't be ignored as well. And I'm not underestimating this at all. This is something I feel comes into my work quite a lot, and I feel strongly about that. Like, you can't do it, you can't do everything. You may have, or someone may have, children to look after. They might be caring for their elderly parents. They might have a stressful job, or their own sort of mental concerns that they need to look after themselves. And I do get that, I really do. And so if I feel sometimes like I'm laying out what might be helpful, and I know that it may not be something that a person can cope with and can deal with, because what they were expecting, what they signed up for, was to have 2 cats that just got along fine and they didn't have to do anything. A slow introduction to begin with, fine, but they didn't realize they would be having to deal with fights and really serious issues, and having to separate them. Keeping cats separate is just so exhausting, isn't it? I don't know if you guys have found this, but keeping cats separate means you have to share your time between your 2 cats, which is hard enough to begin with, and make sure you're giving them the right amount of attention. And then once they're separate, how do we get them together again? What's that process like? Plus, your cats, one or both, will feel frustrated during that separation, because they'll be like, I want to be on the other side of that door, but I can't. And the same as if you go into the other side, the other cat will be meowing at the door or pawing to be like, I want to come out. So it's not easy. Excuse me. Oh no, my voice. There we go. It's not easy, and I just don't want to underestimate the impact that can have on our mental well-being, because it is hard. So if you feel like that, do reach out to somebody that can help you, be that family or friends, or a behaviourist near you, or comment to me. I'll always try to comment back and support you where I can. But if you feel like you can't cope, it's okay to find them a new home. I know it's upsetting, I know it's not what anybody wants, but I think sometimes it can help everybody can help the people, and it can help the cats. And if you do a trial separation, which a few of my clients have done, where they've been like, a lady at the moment who has her cat in a cattery, she's like, I just need some space to not be dealing with this. So she put one of her cats in the cattery, and she's noticing the other cat is so much happier. They're coming over, they're like sitting on her, and just spending a lot more, like coming out of their shell a little bit, and so she can see the impact that the other cat is having on her. So if you can manage a trial separation just to see how it affects the behaviour of both cats, that might give you a better gauge of whether they, whether they are stressed being together, whether that's stressful, or whether they would be much happier if they were separate. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. I hope that you guys are all well. I hope that I haven't, I don't know, upset anybody by talking this way. Like I said, always try to feel positive about this and being like, okay, we can totally do this. Let's try everything. But I do know that there are times when it just doesn't work out. And I'm here for that as well, just to talk that through. I hope I haven't missed any comments. Nothing's popped up. That may just because there is none, but if I've missed any, I'll come back after and comment below. But I hope you guys are all doing well. There is, if you're struggling with introductions, as part of my membership, Deep Dive membership, there is introductions, step-by-step process from start to finish. And if you're looking for mentoring, then there are some example cases as well of some cats we've been dealing with lately as well. So feel free to join there if you would like, but otherwise I will leave you for today, and I hope you all keep well. Take care.